Hey guys, so this last weekend we saw MLG X Games. Huge event, very well received in terms of production quality. Very great games. We saw LDLC taking down NIP in 3 maps in the finals. Very fun overall. Now, I was selected for the observer role for this event, and I had been selected for the observer role for EMS and ESL1 events in the past as well. So I have a little bit of an understanding doing this in terms of going for an entire tournament doing nothing but using like controlling and directing the in-game camera. So I was asked, and based off of comments and feedback and criticism on various forums and Twitter, basically to share my thoughts on good practices of being an observer. So I guess one of the main points that we can talk about here is X-ray, on or off, and why. That is probably the biggest debate that people have. People will say it should be left on because people who are on mobile devices, I've seen people saying big screens, you need X-ray on. If you have lower quality internet and your download speed's not high enough, then you want to have X-ray on because you can actually see the player models. But I feel like that percentage of people that can't actually physically see like a clear enemy, like a clear distinction of the enemy, I think that number of people is so low that we shouldn't compromise the entire production value for that small percentage of players. I mean, when you look back at the VODs and stuff, when you have the live viewers, when you have all these viewers that actually have proper computers and stable internet and proper like viewing platforms, I think it's unfair to kind of sacrifice the overall production value for the small vocal minority. Now, the first thing and topic I want to talk about is X-ray, on or off. Why? Having it on all the time, it removes elements of skill and anticipation. Now, I want to go into real depth with the X-ray issue. When you have X-ray on all the time, you know exactly what's happening. There's no like anticipation. There's no wondering what's going to happen next. You're kind of there and just letting like everything just get dictated in front of your eyes, and you're not thinking at all critically about it. You're not learning anything. You're not understanding any element of the game. You need to look at it from the perspective of the pro player. So I'm going to use examples from, let's say, Inferno. I'm going to use any example I use is going to be on Inferno for this game. Let's say I'm the B banana player as a counter terrorist on Inferno, and I know that I threw smoke down at banana and I'm waiting for enemies to come through it. With X-ray on, I can see exactly how many enemies there are. If they're setting for a flash, are they waiting to smoke out? Are there 3 people there, 4 people there, 1 person there, no people there? I don't know any of these things. So as a player, there are things that I do to get information. I can throw grenades and listen for noise and a reaction. I can throw flashbangs, listen for noise and reaction. I can spam through smoke, listen for noise and reaction. If they shoot back or if they make footsteps, I know there are enemies there. So if I know an enemy is there as a CT player defending B, with X-ray on as a spectator, I know exactly what's happening. Have the terrorists rotated back to middle? Have they left 1 person there? Are they about to set up a fake? What are they actually setting up? Are they sitting there waiting for me to push and peek into them? Or are they about to peek me? So with all these questions that a pro player has defending the site, you want to basically toggle X-ray on for that information as a spectator, see that there are enemies around the corner, then you toggle it off. So you let the action play out, and you have the same thoughts and questions on your mind as the defending CT. Are the terrorists still there? Have they rotated out? Is he about to peek? If he peeks me here, is this a common angle? You need to understand all these things and put yourself in the shoes of the pro player. If you want to see, like, if they're rotating out, you can look at the overview, first of all, the radar in the top left of the screen, but it's also the observer's job to kind of show you where that next action is going to happen. If there's no one going to peek me at banana as a CT, the observer shouldn't be on that spot to begin with. So X-ray shouldn't be required in that situation. Now, X-ray off, you can see people's reaction times and what the pro player sees. So, for example, if I'm playing arch side middle, and I have an op, and I'm double scoped in, and I have this pixel peak that I'm peeking, a very like minuscule, like it's just as thick as the crosshair itself. That's how wide of an angle I'm peeking. If a player runs across my screen and I'm able to react quick enough and shoot him, that's insane. Like the average reaction time is over 200 milliseconds. If you run across my screen and it's just a pixel peak and I shoot you with a 100 millisecond reaction time, that's a huge element of skill that you absolutely need to just portray as an observer. So toggling X-ray off, like you can have it on. You can see a player coming up middle and 2 seconds before he's about to make contact, you turn off X-ray. So you can see exactly what the pro player sees in that situation. You see how fast they react, and you see what the response is. This creates anticipation, anxiety. You don't know what's going to happen. Is the player going to hit the shot? Was it a hard shot to hit? So you want to kind of paint this picture by disabling X-ray in key points of time. Other thing is smoke grenades. When you have X-ray on and you see like a player with a crosshair and there's a smoke grenade up, you're like, oh my god, why isn't he shooting? But if you have the X-ray on, you see that there's a player behind the smoke, you disable X-ray, now you see exactly what the player sees. So like, is there a player behind the smoke? Am I aiming at him? You see that the player's trying to adjust himself to kind of see over the smoke or around the smoke or under the smoke, and you kind of see exactly what they see, and you know why they're not just shooting randomly. Or you can see that you take off X-ray, you see them lining up in a specific angle or specific position to get a pre-fire off or spam off. With X-ray on, you're just like, casually just shooting around. If you disable X-ray, you see exactly what they're looking for in their spam. So these are things like that put you as a spectator into the position of the pro player and kind of understand his thought process, understand why they're choosing to do a certain thing without having everything, like, it's hindsight's 20/20. Like, if I was a player in a certain situation and I knew everything after, I know everything after the fact, if I knew in the situation, I'd play it differently, obviously. But the pro player doesn't know it at the time, and that's why disabling X-ray is a good way to kind of put yourself into that position. X-ray is a good alternative to having overlay up, though. So when I pull up overlay and you can see people running like all sorts of sides of the map and they're splitting up and they're sending 3 people A side, 2 people B side, that's good at the start of a round. But you don't want to have the overview up all the time. You want to see where people are aiming, what are they smoking, what are they flashing. You want to see in the player perspectives. So what you do in that situation when the overview is going to just take up the entire screen, you don't see what's happening, if players are walking or running somewhere, where they're going, how they're peeking things. If you don't want to have all of that kind of interrupted, that's when X-ray is good. You can see through the walls how all the players are setting up, and you can see exactly which positions they're taking without obscuring or blocking your view with the entire overview just being plastered all over your screen. Whoops. X-ray is a good way to see damage dealt by nades and spams. So if you know that a player's, let's say I'm middle, for example, as a counter-terrorist, and I have a grenade, I know terrorists are walking up mid, I throw a grenade. X-ray is good because it shows you where the nade landed through the walls, and it shows you how much damage the grenade did. As a spectator, that's crucial information. As a player in that kind of counter-terrorist perspective, you don't know if it hit anyone. You don't know how much damage it did unless you see it physically hit someone and explode. But even then, you don't even know how much damage it's done. So spectators are entitled to having more information than the players, but having too much information isn't good. Knowing how much damage and the spam's doing, and if it's hitting a player through the smoke, it's good because you're there. You know that the player who's spamming through the smoke and throwing the grenades, he doesn't know how much damage he's doing, if he's doing any damage at all. So kind of having the X-ray on just to see if the spam's hitting and how much damage it's doing, it gives spectators like a sense of excitement. Oh my god, he almost got that kill, or oh my god, that did so much damage, and it's fun and exciting for that. But having X-ray on all the time kind of takes away from that, because now you know everything and you're kind of criticizing the player and wondering why he's making certain plays. X-ray off also shows you proper angles that players take and where they aim specifically. So there are many angles that I could take. Let's say I'm playing porch side of Inferno as a counter-terrorist, and I'm taking a pixel peek into boiler, or I'm angling off into top of middle. You can see how I'm positioned where it will block flashbangs. You'll see where my crosser's aimed for the head level. You know how I'm positioning myself, where if a player runs up out of boiler or out of top middle, they both run into the same angle where my crosshair is pointed at. You can see the crossfires that I established with my teammates. That's not to say you can't see that with X-ray on, but when you have X-ray on, when people are like shouldering out of middle as a terrorist, let's say I'm a terrorist peeking top middle towards arch or towards porch, you don't know like if the shoulder's being poked out or if it's the leg or what the pro player sees. So you want to, again, have the X-ray on. You see that players are getting close, X-ray off. The observer will point you into the next direction where the person should be getting next action. It's not the job of the audience. Like, that's the whole point of having an observer, to direct you towards the next action. So as an observer, as an audience member, you just want to sit there and let the director, I guess the observer, direct where the action is going to unfold, and you watch it. The observer, if they're doing a good enough job, they're not going to just sit there spectating someone on the other side of the map and let action happen over at middle just for the fun of it. If they're doing that, they should get criticized and they should be told like, hey man, you gotta be looking at the action more. I feel like I try my best to stare at the radar, look at where the next action is going to happen, and kind of make it so that wherever the action is going to happen, you're going to see it, and you don't need X-ray to kind of find out where the next action is going to happen, because I should be looking at the map overview and be going to the next player that's going to see guaranteed action. And that's another thing I want to talk about a little bit later. But first I want to keep talking about X-ray a little bit longer, about how it builds intensity, or how it makes pros seem bad if they don't shoot an enemy or peek when they should. So if you're spectating me and I'm playing B Inferno, and I don't peek out when a guy has a grenade out in his hands, like, you're going to just be there like, oh my god, this guy steals so bad, he didn't push when he should have, he didn't peek when he should have, or he peeked into an op, he peeked into two people, what a noob. The player doesn't have that information at that time. So it builds intensity. And another way it builds intensity is, for example, I'm at B Inferno. I hope I didn't talk about this already. Let's say I know a player's there for a fact by the car, and I was in a battle with him, but now I've hidden. I have X-ray on, and it looks like the player's about to peek the corner from the car and peek into me over at Banana. With X-ray off, 2-3 seconds before that happens, you as an audience member, as a spectator, you don't know. Like, you think the same things. Is he going to peek me? When's he going to peek? Is it going to be one person? Is it going to be two people? Are they about to execute? Should I push? Should I fall back? What do I do? Should I flash them? Should I smoke down? Put yourself in their shoes. So I'll talk about other practice for the observer then. So you're the director of the in-game show. You need to kind of just build the flow. You need to kind of show where the next action is going to happen. You're not there for the enjoyment, like pure enjoyment. Sure, it's fun. You see great plays. You see great shots being made. You see great clutches. But that happens maybe 15 seconds or 20 seconds of every 2 minutes. A round could last 2 minutes, and for 15, 20 seconds, you actually get to enjoy the decision making of the players, or the reaction time, or the skilled flick shots. You only have that much time to actually enjoy it, and that's because it comes down to like a 1vx situation. You're spectating one player and there's nothing else that can happen. So you don't get that the full time. Most of the time, you're actually there working, making sure that everyone else gets to enjoy the show and enjoy the shots and enjoy all the plays that are being made. So it's a job above all else. While some of the games are exciting and you can see good plays or shots, you need to be focused entirely on making sure the audience gets told the best story possible. Basically, you're there directing the show. You're telling a story almost. Flicking through players quickly isn't good. So most of the time when you see me, if I switch through players too quick, like within a second type of thing, that means that I've pressed the wrong button, or there's an action that's happening here. As soon as the kill's being made, I'm flicking over to another person and then to the next player that's going to see action. Sometimes being too trigger happy isn't good. Sometimes missing some actions isn't bad. I'll give an example of this. If you see actions about to happen on B, on Inferno, and you see action that's about to happen in apartments as well, it's oftentimes impossible to tell which action is going to happen first, or are they going to happen at the same time. So what you do as an observer, or what I do as an observer, I'll show this player's walking here for 2 or 3 seconds. I'll try to consciously say, never less than 2 or 3 seconds before you flick off into the next person. So I'll say I'm spectating a person in apartments for 2 or 3 seconds, show where he is, show what he sees, show what's about to happen, and I go over to the B guy. Again, another 2 or 3 seconds at least. Now the spectators and the audience knows exactly where the players are and what's about to happen. Now it's my job as an observer is to anticipate, is the action going to happen first at apartments or first at banana? If I guess right and you see the apartment action first, and then I'm able to switch to the banana action quick enough before it goes down, then I've just made a good guess, I anticipated correctly, and it's a good, shot for the audience. Now, if I anticipate incorrectly, let's say I show the banana angle first, and then the action happens at apartments, and then the action happens at banana, I will stay on the banana action the entire time because I just showed you the setup, the build up to the apartment action. If we didn't see the kill specifically, we knew what built up to that. We knew 2 or 3 terrorists were taking control of it, and one person was setting up a flash before I switched off to the banana play. So as an audience member, what could have happened, where the kill happened, what that means for the round. Now we're seeing how the players over at B react to that. So I don't need to switch over to the apartments after the kill is made. I can still stay on the banana action even though I just missed a kill, because that's still telling a story. It's still showing a different perspective. While it's not the kill, sometimes the kills aren't the most important parts. Sometimes the most important parts of the show are how the players react to kills. Do they push? Do they peek? Do they flash? Do they smoke? Do they throw a fake? How did the other terrorists on that part of the map, after they got a kill in apartments, how did they react? How did the counter-terrorists react to their teammates dying? That is just as important as the kill being made. People will say the action or where the kill is made is the most important part, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes strategy and finding out how the players rotate is more important, because that's how you learn, and that's how you anticipate what's going to happen next. Oh, okay, great. The terrorists went into apartments, cleared it, they got apartment control. What does that mean for the rest of the round? Now you kind of have to think how the players are going to react to that, and how are the defensive side, who just lost a player in apartments, how are they going to make sure that they don't lose the rest of the round? Every camera angle that you take, whenever you switch a camera angle, always leave it up for minimum 2 seconds, if not 3 seconds. Go in eye with the player who's likely to say the next action. So if I know that there's a counter-terrorist and a terrorist at banana, I'll usually go to the terrorist's point of view if it's one player, or I'll look at the counter-terrorist point of view if it's one player. If it's one player in that situation on either side, and there's multiple enemies, 2 or 3 enemies that are close to them, I usually will spectate from the point of view of that one person, because they are guaranteed to see action. Of the other 2 or 3 players that are on the opposite side, you don't know who's going to peek, you don't know who's going to peek first, you don't know which angles are going to take. One person might fly across move across to the other side and kind of just be a distraction while the other person peeks and gets the kill. So you're not guaranteed to see who will get the kill in that situation, but you're guaranteed, if you spectate that one person, that they're either getting a kill or they're dying. So either way, they're going to be involved with the action. So I always leave it with them. So I'll leave the in-eye on the point of view of the terrorist, but while that's happening, I'm looking at the radar, I'm looking at the other player numbers, I'm looking at where the next action is going to happen. So I leave it on one player, and then my fingers are ready for 7 and 9, because action is going to happen somewhere else on the map, and player number 7 or 9 is probably going to see the next action. And I'm getting ready to cycle between either 7 or 9 and then back to the original action. So I'm always looking ahead while leaving the camera view on what's happening in the now. That's what the observer should be doing. They should never be observing what's happening now and, oh, this other action is happening now somewhere else. You're anticipating what's going to happen somewhere else and leaving on what's happening now, and then you switch to see the action before it happens somewhere else. If there's a big execution or a team fight, for example, like a 5-on-5 execution, smokes and flashes everywhere going over the walls, it's almost impossible to know who's going to get the first kill or who's going to get the most kills. Sometimes you'll be on a player's perspective who should be getting the most kills or the first kill, and they end up with 0 kills and not even dying and just shooting at nothing, and some other person's pushed through a smoke and gotten a 3 kill. And it's sometimes often so hard to predict what's going to happen and why that happens, that what you want to do is smoke's flying over the wall, flashes coming over the wall, go bird eye view. Like you're up here looking down, you're seeing all the smokes landing everywhere. You can see this where the smokes land, and then how the counter terrorists react to it. Do they counter smoke? Do they counter flash? Do they spam? Where do they spam? Do they push through the smoke? Do they flash push through the smoke? Do they play a full retake by letting the terrorists get into the site and plant the bomb before they do anything? So all of these things coming into mind, you want to bird's eye view, show exactly where the smokes and flashes are going, show how the reactions are going. Are the terrorists pushing in blind, running in backwards, or are they blind, running into a wall, or are they not blind at all and they're just peeking, waiting for a counter terrorist to push through smoke? You leave it up there for a couple of seconds, even if people are getting shot at or killed. Having that bird's eye perspective, you can see exactly where the kills are happening from, why the kills are happening. Maybe you don't see the shot being made. Maybe you don't, like, it could have been a flick shot. It could have been a really cool flick shot. It could have been a smoke spam. It could have been a number of ways that this player got the kill. But it's more important to see the overview and seeing like how everything's unfolding and how the players are pushing into the site than it is to see someone getting a cool flick shot, which, you know, you might not see. Maybe they don't get a flick shot. Maybe they get no kills at all. So you want to do oftentimes in the observer role what's guaranteed as opposed to what's the coolest. It's as simple as that. You're not looking to capture all the highlight clips. You're looking to kind of capture the story of the game, the story of the match and the series. The other thing I could talk about in situations where, I already talked about that. Oh, showing player rotations in the map overview. Great way to show map timing. So what I mean by this is, let's say there's action being made and it's a 3 versus 3, or it's a 4 versus 4, and there's still like a minute left in the round, and there's no more action going to happen for the next 10-15 seconds at least. I'll pull up the overview for at least 5 to 10 seconds. And the reason for this is because you can see how the players are rotating. Are they rotating safe, or are they pushing to flank, or are they pushing up like an area like Inferno, for example? Are they pushing into alt mid window? You want to see what timings and routes that these players take. If it's a really safe rotation, it's going to take a longer time than a more chance or a risky one. If you're taking a risky play or a risky peek, there's more of a chance to die, but you gather a lot of information. So what you often want to do is just show how long it takes for players to rotate from one spot to another. Let's say I'm a terrorist on Inferno, and I want to do a banana fake, and then throw the smokes and flashes and run back to A. Having the overviews up is a great way to see, okay, the smoke was thrown now, the flashes are thrown now. Okay, now 2 seconds after all that was thrown and exploded, that's when the CT rotated safe, and the terrorist was rotating back into middle now from banana, and they're about to do their A hit just when the counter-terrorists get over to the B bomb site. So the timing of all of it is the smoke blooms, the flashes go off, the counter-terrorist rotates, and the counter-terrorist takes 10 seconds to rotate through spawn into B, and in that 10 seconds, like right after that 10 second mark happens, that's when the terrorists over at A make their move. So the terrorists at A don't make their move exactly when the smoke and the flashes go off. They do it 10 seconds after that, when the counter-terrorists are completely out of position and they're about to rotate back and they're kind of figuring out, is it B or is it A? Is it a fake? Should I push? Should I peek? What do I do? So when you have the overview up, you can see the timings of the map, the timings of the rotations, and you understand a little bit better about why pro players rotate in certain fashions, why they take risks and chances for information, and you understand on a deeper level the flow of the game as opposed to just looking at a perspective of, oh, that's a flashy kill, we should clip that and make a highlight clip. So anyways, those were my thoughts, quick thoughts on good practices of being an observer. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. It's just my opinion, it's my perspective. I've done it a few times. I feel like every time I do it, there's something new that I incorporate. There's something I learn about it. There's, I think with something so new, there's always like different methods, different styles, different techniques. You look at directors of movies, everyone's got a different style, everyone's got different philosophy and technique. I feel like mine kind of tries to encompass the story and understand a bit of the strategy element, but also places you in the perspective of the pro players. I feel like other overviews are more highlight clippy, flashy play, hype based styles of spectating. And some people will enjoy my style, others will not. It's not for everyone. It's a subjective matter. But that's the same with all movies as well. So I hope you guys like this, and I'll try to put up more thoughts videos and specifically other tutorials or comment like match commentaries breaking down what happens on maps. Until then, laters.